Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. It's May 16th, 2023. I call the Commission of the City Plan meeting to order. Do a roll call. Myself, Kathy Rosika, Ella Miles is online, I think. And Dean Mason, we can seat as a voting member. So we have a quorum. Approval of minutes for April 18th meeting. If we could have someone make a motion on those minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Ellen made a motion to approve those minutes. A second. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, good. I don't see old business.
Nope, we're gonna continue communications first, please.
Okay.
So, Dan, do you want to call it up? So I'm just gonna read this into the record. This came in today. Dear Ms. Rhodes, on behalf of the applicant, 2016 from here, 16 Cedar Street Development LLC. I am requesting a postponement of the opening of the public hearing until the June meeting of the commission. Thank you. So that was the public hearing, the second one on your, on the agenda today. Do you want to do a motion to postpone that?
Yeah, we can do that based on the communication. Can we have somebody make a motion to table that to June 20th?
I'll make that motion.
Ella's made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second from Dean. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the matter is tabled.
Thank you.
Again, no old business that I see on the agenda. The first matter we have is special permit 2303 8 Mountain View Drive. Request for a special permit for a proposed 25 by 26 foot addition to an existing single family dwelling for a proposed accessory apartment with a 5 foot by 10 foot deck and a 10 foot by 12 foot deck. Application and property of Frank Swan Jr. and Diane M. Swan. Assessors map 73, block 1, lot 66, zone R20. So I guess we need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Motion to open the hearing.
Second.
Second by Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Okay, so the public hearing is now open. One speaker, the applicant.
The applicant is here, so do you want him to come up to the table and sit? That's probably the.
Mr. Swan?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You're representing yourself. Why don't you come on up and tell us what you're doing?
And we'll call things up on the computer, on the screen for everybody to see as well.
And if you could identify yourself and address for the record.
My name is Frank Swan Jr. and I am the owner, well, my wife and I are the owners of 8 Mountain View Drive, and we are proposing to add an addition onto my house for like a mother-in-law apartment. My mother's getting older and she's gonna have to go into a home or we do something like this. That's what I'm hoping done.
Okay.
So we'll go through the drawings up on the screen. If you could just describe them for the commission members and for the public.
Okay, from looking from the street, I at my house, I'm looking to add on an addition on the left side of my house by 25 feet, 26 feet deep, 25 feet wide, and a small 10 by 12 deck in the back of it. And on the side of it will be the door entrance and a small 5 by 10 deck. To get into it from stairs. But, you know.
Yeah, just pretend we're ignorant and don't know anything about it.
All right,
So-
no,
Frank, is there public water? There's public water there, but is there public sewer there?
I have my own septic system with a leach field, and it was done about 5 years ago. So zoning, Uncas came and said that since it was done so recently, they don't think there's any reason why there should be any issues. And then the gas and water will be coming right from my house itself. Due to that it's my mother living there, I don't think I have to worry about her ripping me off.
You
So
gotta
that
watch
picture
those
right,
mothers.
yeah.
It'll be good to have a babysitter.
And that's really what the case is. My my wife has been literally staying at her home pretty much 7 days a week. She's getting a little less upstairs. And so we constantly worried about this something. So she has somebody in the afternoon, but in the evenings, if you want around, it costs too much money for her to have it. So we're hoping that what we'll do is we'll borrow some money against the house that she has now and put this on and then sell it home. And the picture on the bottom there, it says new addition here, that'd be the location of where the addition will be added. Those two trees right there are coming down, but other than that, that's the only thing.
So is that gonna be ground level or is it gonna be up?
It'll be shaped just like the rest of the house. So it's just gonna be like an extension. It'll look like it's all one piece.
So the living area will be up at the
Upper portion,
area
yeah.
where the,
And the bottom, which even though it's a raised ranch, the bottom just gonna be for her to store her stuff. So it's gonna be empty down there. And that would be the base, what the basement, that'd be the stairs going down to the basement. There will be a door, that's the back portion of the basement area. There'll be a bay window and a door to go into it. There's the 10 by 12 deck in the back. She'll have a very large bathroom. We're hoping to do like a walk-in bath, shower for her. So we can kind of wheelchair her as she's getting older. It just says tub, but it's gonna be like a walk-in shower. That's gonna be her living room to the right. And then in the front, we'll have a small, like half kitchen type thing.
That's this is the drawing that's superseded, by the way, because that shows the deck in the front.
Yeah, we
That's a
changed it over.
superseded
That's an older,
Yeah,
there's another one that got uploaded. I apologize. But the back portion is pretty much the same.
updated 516. Nope, that was me cited. I can pass it around if you want. This is how it's gonna look. It's a
I
bay.
have pictures too.
I don't have any.
Okay, it's just a bay window in the
Yeah.
front and another window,
Yeah.
and the door is on the side.
That's part of
Yes,
the,
yeah.
yes, that's it right there. Yep.
So there's the front to match the other bay window in the front of the house and then a
Correct.
door.
And that's the side,
Right down here.
yeah, the next one down showed the picture. of
That's the
deck on-
interior,
Yeah, that's the back.
the bathroom, the bedroom,
Yeah.
and then,
And then there's the deck coming out of the side of it, for the door to come out of the side of the house, or the left side of the house.
You mentioned the access to the bathroom,
Yeah.
future, wheelchair accessible. Are you concerned with exterior access to
I'm not
the
sure.
dwelling? Where she's gonna be going up from ground level, she's going up stairs at this point, so
and-
mobility is not an issue at this point.
No, but down the line, as I said to you earlier, we were planning on extending the side deck and getting one of those metal
Yep.
wheelchair ramps. Yeah, thank you. Later on, but right now she can walk upstairs. She does have a walker, but she does, with assistance, she can get up and downstairs.
if you don't mind me interrupting for 1 second, the original design that Dan was showing, they actually had the door in the front and they were proposing a ramp. But the ramp was too steep from that door to
Sure.
going down. It would have had to wrap multiple times around in the front. So they didn't really need the ramp at this point. And it just didn't meet for the accessibility, wouldn't have met in the front anyway, so they switched it to make it more consistent with our regulations that don't want 2 front doors either. The regulations where for an in-law apartment is supposed to encourage the door on the side so that you don't have that of a 2-family. If at all possible. So that's what they modified their design so that they could have that.
Thank you.
No, that's okay.
Fine.
Do we want to go over my public, my memo really quickly or,
Yeah,
okay?
do that.
So I have a few things that I have to enter into the record because it is a public hearing, so I can just let you know that the notifications did go out as required. Let's go over my memo real quick. Then I will address some other things. Okay, so I had memo comments and they were on the website, so if you read them, I can tell you that all the first 6 comments have all been addressed. Literally every comment has been addressed. The only thing is there is a request in here for a waiver. Number 2 was a waiver of the requirement for an A2 survey for this project because it is a simple addition that we would normally, if they were coming in, if it wasn't an in-law apartment, it would be something that we would accept using the GIS map for. So yes, for a waiver to that, which is allowed in the regulations. The commission had the applicant has submitted in the 13 criteria for a special permit with the responses, appropriate responses to those. Again, he is aware of that. Our regulations require for accessory dwellings that the owner has to live in the principal in one of the units in the house, and that the unit, if rented, must be rented at or below prices qualifying for affordable housing. And there is a deed restriction requirement that goes on the land records for that to ensure that it does get rented out, because the intention really is that it was created for someone to live there affordably. So we have that language. So after the close of the public hearing, after the comments from the public, firstly, you'd have to work on, make a motion on the waiver of the site plan. And then there's a few other criteria that I have, and I can go over those, that the special permit needs to be filed with the clerk, and we provide that. And that the deed for the regarding the affordable housing on the land records has to be filed as well. And then a zoning permit is needed. And that the owner has to occupy at least one of the dwelling units on the property, and that any modifications to the approval has to come back. Those are the standards. So let me just go through, if you don't mind, some comments from different people. So I did not give you the exhibit list, so I'm just going to quickly go through that. So the special permit application, the deed was submitted, the waiver request with the special permit criteria was submitted with an assessor's card. The existing home floor plan was submitted. It's not shown here, but it shows the connection to this unit is through is it a dining room?
Yes.
Through a dining room at the end of the hallway. There's receipts for the mailing, my memo, which I went over, and those comments have been addressed. There was original site plan that was superseded. And then the next one that was submitted was not to scale. So we worked and rescaled that. The photos of the house, the sketch proposed superseded plan, and then the one that Dan just called up. Uncas Health District had some comments. I can just read those. It's not, there's a couple things here. So the Health District did their review, and because he is on septic there, firstly said that he submitted a memo and said that, hold on a second. The above property meets the requirements of section 1913B100A of the Connecticut Public Health Code. Therefore, the proposed in-law addition and 10 by 12 deck and 5 by 6 decks, which is now 5 by 10, as depicted on the enclosed sketch are permissible. That was David Coughlin on April 13th, 2023. I did update him that there was some changes to the configuration as far as the decks, and he said those minor changes won't impact his approval. And that was on May 3rd. Then we have Rob Harris with the NPU upon review of the A2 survey, which is a mistake that it's not an A2. I clarified that it's just the assessor's card, that it does not appear to have be in vicinity of overhead power lines. So he was comfortable with that because they do have a easement there. Property is already serviced by city water, natural gas, and electricity. No city water sewer is available. In addition, there's an easement through the backyard for an overhead electrical feeder line. Please provide site plan showing the spatial location and elevation, any proposed changes so the NPU can review. And they did look at it again and said there's no conflict. The fire marshal has said it's not part of their code because it's not a 3-family or more. And the city engineer has no comments on this application once that they changed the handicap ramp location so that he's not doing the handicap ramp, but it was too steep. It would not have met code.
I just want to, Deanna, before you keep going, I just want to note that Mike Lahan is with us online.
Okay,
And welcome, Mike, and thanks for the apparent great effort of joining us tonight.
and so we're seating Mike Lahan as well.
Yeah,
Okay, and it's at 7:15. Thank you, Mike. Just the last two things, was that the legal notice of the public hearing was published on time, but those were all the items that were entered into the record.
okay, anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anybody from the public? Yes,
I just have a question.
okay, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Angela Petrowski. I'm at 164 Browning Road.
Angela, can you spell your last name
PETROWSKI,
and the address again?
164.
Thank you.
Is that an abutting?
Yes.
So what would a full basement have, like, how would it affect the water table in the area? Because my yard is kind of like lower than theirs. So what would that do with the water table? Because I'm already having flooding in the basement.
So I'm not a building official, so I can't answer that specific question, but these plans that are showing tonight are not sufficient. So there'll be much more detailed plans, and usually there's things like footing drains that are required for basements to be installed. So those are things that would be looked at the site. So when it comes in, the zoning enforcement officer will look at, the building official will look at it, but it can also be referred to the city engineer as well. But so that's, at this point, it would not, we wouldn't get into that kind of detail as far as how that would affect that.
This is just a zoning hearing. The building itself is handled by the building.
I've never been to one of these before.
It's pretty exciting, huh? Try not to fall asleep. Anybody else from the public have any questions or comments regarding the application? And I'm going to take that as a negative for both positive and opposition. So hearing no other public input on this, I think we can move to close the public
Yeah,
hearing.
I have, unless you have questions for me, I have put things into the record that needed to be, and those again would be the recommendations. If you make a motion, the first thing you need to address is the waiver of the site plan.
Me too.
And then those are the conditions that I would ask to be added to the plan.
Does anybody?
Make a motion to waive it.
Well,
No,
We gotta
first we
close the
gotta
public hearing.
hearing.
Go ahead.
So, we make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion made.
I'll second.
We've got 2 seconds, so all in favor?
Aye.
So the public hearing is closed. Now we can, Mike, do you have a question? I can't hear you. Can
Are you
you
good?
get Mike online? I see him, but I
He's not muted. I can't.
can't hear you, Mike.
Muted on there.
Now you're muted. Unmute yourself, Mike. Thank
So I
you.
did. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just voting aye.
Oh, okay. I thought you were raising your hand with a question.
No.
All right. So the public hearing is closed, and at this point, we can entertain a motion regarding action on the special permit application.
No, the waiver,
Mhm.
Yeah,
the waiver.
yeah. Well, I think Dean already made
Motion to
that
waive the.
A2 survey requirement.
I don't know if
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to waive the A2 survey requirement. Can we get a second on that?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the A2 survey requirement is waived. And then as to the merits of the special permit, does anybody have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special permit with the conditions outlined by Deanna.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve with the conditions as outlined by Deanna and in her memo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposition? No. So the special permit 2303 for 8 Mountain View Drive is approved.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, both of you, by the way, also for all the help you give me.
We'll be following up with the information. There's information that's a post-approval, so we'll follow up with you, okay?
Perfect. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. I'll probably bother you some more and I apologize for that, but.
No problem.
I'm learning as well.
That's your job.
Good luck.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hope your mother does well.
I appreciate that. That's nice of you to say.
Hope to see that going while I'm walking by.
There you go. Definitely. I was just gonna say, I'll see you on the street.
Yeah.
walking by, right?
Yeah,
That
Kathy's
sounds
straight
bad, but
walking.
that's not what it is.
Walk that road.
Thank you very
Sounds
much.
every day.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you.
Okay, so
So if Mike didn't hear because he came in late, so can I mention the second public hearing? Mike, the second public hearing has been postponed at the applicant's request for 16 Cedar Street, and that will be heard at the June 20th meeting.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, so that brings us then to the matter of subdivision number 4-36408 Scotland Road. Request for a second lot subdivision, which includes 3 interior lots. Property of Susan Phillips, Charles Lillibridge, and Mary Louise Altizer. Application of Peter Gardner and Charles Lillibridge. Assessors map 29, block 1, lot 26, zone RA.
I know you'd like to, want to share one, or Frank, you and Kathy want to share one?
Yeah, we can do that.
There we go, pass it this way. And we're gonna call it up on the screen as well.
All right, so Mr.
We'll do it
Gardner,
for
I
you.
take it you're here for the applicant?
Peter Gardner, 1641 Roosevelt and Dale Stories office. I'm here with Charles Lillibridge tonight. And the property is a 28.43 acre parcel on the west side of Scotland Road in an R80 zone. And what's just been outlined is the boundaries of the property. And that plan that's on screen shows 7 lots that we're proposing. This property's been in the Lillibridge family for 6 generations. 6 generations. And we have a plan that set that consists of the sheet 1, the general notes, location map, and the 100 scale that shows the boundaries of the property and how we have a match line that goes to sheets 2 and 3. This plan also shows the abutters. This is a 40 scale plan. It's on the screen with 2 contours. The inland wetlands is flagged by a soil scientist, the 100-foot upland review area, and quite a bit of detail on conceptually how the lots can be developed. We show a home, a septic system, well, topsoil stockpile, erosion sediment control, and conceptual topography. Test holes were witnessed by Uncas Health, and the Uncas Health District has reviewed and approved the subdivision plans. This sheet also has different kind of scallop lines. One is the approximate location of existing tree line, and the second is conceptually how the clearing limits could take place. One of the comments that Deanna came up with was that we may have some mistakes with the existing tree line, and we'll correct those. The property, we attempted to address any concerns with solar orientation.
So do we want to go to my memo and then you can talk about that?
Well, sure. I mean, I'm hitting the highlights of the property.
Okay,
And the 4th sheet has test hole data, a series of general notes, and erosion sediment control narrative, and some details, including one to protect trees. There are some significant trees on and about the property, and the goal is to protect those that aren't in the way of either sight lines or proposed development. So Deanna, do you want me to roll into your memo? Or do you want
no, I just didn't know if you were starting to do that when you were starting, because I don't think they haven't seen today's, the one from memo to today, so. So we'll just go over your plan, let's do it. Take a look.
We have 3 interior lots, 4 frontage lots. We are also conveying to the city a narrow strip of land in front of the lots on the southwest corner of the property for
Yep.
the widening of the town's right of way. It's
Right up
in
there.
accordance with the subdivision regulations. And there's a detail that shows the math and how that will have to be repaired. This is a good picture because it does show some of the detail that's involved. And we also show the storm drainage in the street, and which way that's running. As required by the health department, we would put the note on lot 3 that a pump system may be required to utilize the tested area. There are a number of stone walls that are on the property, and we've attempted to show those on the plan. There's no intent to remove the one along the street because that it's a nice wall on the street. And we should be able to maintain that wall and get our sight lines without any damage to it.
And the wall is within the town right of way.
The base of the wall is town right away for the most part. Where we're looking at it right now is the hatched area with the leader from the area dedicated to the city.
Yeah.
That's gonna put the wall entirely within the city right away.
Okay.
Otherwise, the Little Bridges own the wall that's facing the street. There's an awful lot of detail on these plans and you can get into it, but the bottom line is we meet all the setback requirements, including the 100 feet to wetlands. And the health code is signed off on it. The conceptual driveways have slopes less than 8%. They're all gonna be 12 foot wide. So the driveways can be constructed with gravels without having to pave or put millings down. We do show that you can see on this sheet again, some of the big trees along the street line that hopefully can be safe.
Peter, how long is the driveway to the rear lot number 2 and?
Number 2,
And, well, how,
the driveway to the house is about 675 feet.
okay, and then to 4, and then, yeah.
4 is about 600 feet
Okay. So they're,
and 5 is about 450.
okay,
I mean, 7 is about 450.
they're not that long. Not that I would want.
The land falls away from the street and there are a lot of fields up there. And the slopes up towards the street are very gentle, but it does fall away from the west. And in back of this property is the Bog Meadow Reservoir, which is pretty much on the shelf right now. Not being used.
Have you gone to the Wetlands Commission
Yes, they got a non-jurisdictional ruling.
from the wetlands?
Mhm.
So they,
The lots would have to come back if there's any activity within the upland review for the particular developments for the plot plans, yeah. But overall, right now, they're not showing any disturbance within the upland areas. So I guess I'll jump in. So I'm just gonna go through some of the comments that we've had from the different departments, so you have that for the record. So I'm just gonna go through just the file, just go through it. So we have the application that was submitted in the referral form here. My memo, I had an original memo, but I updated that today and we can go over that a little bit, but I had an original memo, which also included a copy of a stone wall preservation agreement that the city had used in the past. I have a memo from Peter Gardner dated April 25th, which just verifies that it's a subdivision and not a re-subdivision of the land. Just want to make sure as far as if we needed to have a public hearing. Certification that about the proposed subdivision, that it meets the requirements, is suitable for development, which is one of the criteria that we have in our subdivision regulations, and that was from LBM Engineering dated May 9th. See, then there is a request for the waiver subdivision regulations to require sidewalks in the area. There is no sidewalks in the area, and the Public Works Department and the Planning Department is comfortable with granting a waiver to that. I have a memo from Uncas Health District dated April 25th. I'll read it into the record. Dear Ms. Rhodes, I have reviewed the plans for the proposed 7-lot subdivision of 408 Scotland Road by Dieter and Gardner dated March 2023. All 7 lots meet the minimum requirements of the Connecticut Public Health Code for subsurface sewage disposal. All lots will require a design by a professional engineer licensed in Connecticut. Page 3 was revised on 4/13/23 in response to district comments. Sincerely, David Kaufman, registered sanitarian. MPU looked at the proposal, no utility concerns for this stage of the process. The only city utility available is electricity. The engineer developer should reach out to NPU prior to any construction. There will be substantial electric infrastructure that will need to be installed, and NPU will delineate costs and responsibilities with the developer's agreement. So there is just a note that there's substantial costs relative to electrical here, infrastructure. The next thing was a fire marshal. This went back and forth a little bit with Mark Galat, who is, I believe, the assistant fire marshal. And Mark, first thing was talking about, let me get the first date, that 2022 Connecticut Fire Safety Code D12 requires fire apparatus access roads to extend to within 50 feet of at least one exterior door that provides access to the interior of the building. The road is required to be 20 foot wide with an unobstructed vertical clearance of 13 foot 6 inches. And then Peter responded back, and it kind of went back and forth. I won't read all the comments. Basically, what Peter said is received what is being proposed as 7-lot residential subdivision of single family homes. Access to the homes will be individual driveways, 12 feet wide in accordance with the detail. And then they went back and forth about if it was a driveway or a road needing to meet the requirements. And at the end of the day, on May 16th today, Mark Galat responded back. I asked the state fire marshal for an interpretation on the code requirement. And the code does not apply in this case to driveways. The driveways are acceptable. So again, I want to clarify that Mark is not the assistant. He is the fire marshal. I was thinking that one of the assistants, but he works for the fire chief, and I don't know what their thing is, but Mark usually reviews these. So the end result is that, as the state fire marshal said, it does not apply. So there is no requirement for the wider width of the driveway. Going, engineer had a few comments. I won't bother to mention those on May 16th because he sent something today saying the revised plans addressed all those comments, unless you wanted to know what those were. So that was out of today. All comments have been addressed. Let me see. What else do we have? Mr. Gardner responded to my memo and addressed most comments. And then today I updated that for the items that I still felt that I wanted to bring to the commission's attention for them to for you to discuss. So I'm just going to go over those. Is this my memo of today? Yes. So the applicant addressed many items from my previous memo, but the following items should be discussed and considered by the commission prior to making a decision. And again, the applicant is available and is engineer, surveyor to talk about these. The applicant has not proposed open space, and he intends to pay the $700, which is $100 per lot in accordance with the regulations. However, staff strongly recommends that they consider at least a conservation easement on lots 2, 4, and 7, encompassing the wetland areas to protect that network. It's very close to, again, the reservoir property, the city's land. And then if it was deemed important to the commission, we would provide those the conservation markers for it. So if you want to, do you want to call that overall plan up so they can see where the lots 2, 4, and 7 are?
She wanted to be best to go to.
Yeah, that's the first. So you can see those are the wetlands, and that the reservoir property of the city is right behind there, and the network is wetlands is right back there. So that was just a suggestion. You know, obviously, I don't think that the owner of the property now would be encroaching on that, but potential future development on these lots, people, you know, aren't always aware. So it's not so much in the upland areas, but at least the wetlands themselves to prevent encroachment, just because it's so close to the reservoir. That's
Then
one.
would you do it, the easement at the wetland limit or 25 feet from the wetland limit?
Whatever the commission felt comfortable with doing. And that would just be my recommendation, that it's really about the wetland itself. So, but if you felt, it's very hard to delineate the extents of the wetland flags because they'll be gone at some point. But but the markers would be at the edge of the wetlands.
And you could post, you would.
You post the conservation
post the
markers at the edge
conservation.
of
Okay.
the wetlands. So
And what would this allow the owners to do as far as with an easement? What could they do? What could they not do with the property?
they can do anything with the property, just within the area of the conservation, they wouldn't be able to go up necessarily and disturb it, except for like, say that there was trees that fell into the wetlands, they could by hand go out there and clear those out. They would just have to notify us they're in the easement, so area, but it just prevents them from putting structures in there or dredging it, deciding, oh, I'm gonna try to create a pond
I
out of
was
this
just gonna
wetland.
ask you that, because
Yeah.
that left lot where the writing is, there's a spot right there, a pond could be put in, would have been nice. But
So, I mean, this is really for discussion for, between the commission and you about it, but it's really, from our standpoint, it's really protecting the wetland network. But again, maybe there is some valid reasons to have the farms. It's not so much a farm common anymore because now it's residential
Yeah.
houses, single family houses there. A little different than if a farm agricultural use. So that's something, I'm just gonna go through my comments and you guys can talk about those. We'll leave the memo up. There does not appear the need to install the sidewalk. So again, the waiver to talk about the waiver and consider that. This came up about underground utilities because there's the commission in the past has required underground utilities for electric lines. Some of the properties are pretty significant driveways back 600 feet, and to have poles going the length of the driveways. It just is not really that aesthetically pleasing and kind of a historic and scenic road to have that. The property is closer to the roadway. I can see it, having connected to the existing poles, but that was my recommendation. We've done it before. There's some question by the applicant of where the authority is into the regulations to do that, but it says in our regulations, all approved utilities. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of allows the commission to have some discretion there. But it's really for you to discuss if you want to see the poles. It's the front portion of the property is fields right now, and then it gets wooded and it's not so evident, but having poles, multiple poles to go to one single house just doesn't seem.
And Scotland Road is a scenic road.
It's not designated that I
Oh,
know of as scenic. It's just that it is fairly scenic in that area. I mean, with the stone walls and the farmland that's there. But so it's just for you to consider if you felt that was important. Then the walls we talked about, their family has 6 generations, which is awesome, has been there, and they've been working with, creating walls and taking some down, and they've sold some walls over the years. But in the past, we've worked with other developers on properties and subdivisions just to maintain the historic aesthetic of those areas and to protect those stone walls by asking them to do a preservation easement, which just preserves those in place, or it allows you to move them but keep them on the property. So it does prevent the selling of the historic stone walls, but it keeps them on the property. That's something that I had recommended. It doesn't appear the applicant can respond that they want to do that, but I just wanted you to consider
I
that.
was gonna mention that when you talk about stone walls, most people, the idea comes a nice flat top, where slightly tapered wall, beautiful wall, and if you could put up the back lots.
Mhm.
And to the right. There's a picture that will show it better.
Sheet 2.
Yep.
Lots 5 and 6, for instance.
Not 5 and
Here.
6, yeah. Yes. That one, again, that's kind of has brush growing over it. It's not as,
Well, there's the 2 walls, I'm not quite sure where they are there.
yeah, it's right there with a line where he's put his hand right there. There's 2 walls there. There's one there.
There's 2 walls up there.
Now, is that north and south he's going, or east and west?
It's going north-south.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Because my mother, she died 10 years ago, and probably 15 years before that, we sold several of the walls to Jimmy Frazier. So where it shows walls, what there is basically 1 or 2 stones on top of each other. There's really no walls there anymore. The only ones there are is the front lot towards Norwich, and there is a wall there,
A little lower.
but it's gonna go right through the middle of the house and the septic system. So that would have to come out. So there really is no wall in there that, because I know when you're envisioning a nice pretty wall, and they're not there.
Well, I walked the site. I
Oh,
saw,
have you?
yeah, I walked the site. So go to the further southern lot. What plan
Sheet
would that
three.
be in? Sheet 3. I think that isn't there a wall, that southern
Well,
wall
there's a wall
too?
that goes right through the middle of lot 3. That's the one Charlie was just talking about.
No, go all the way down, move the page up, Dan, yeah. That wall, that's right there at the end, the last, right there, that one's there too. That's a
I,
nice one.
if I could interject a minute, I think we could all agree, trying to talk about you too, that the boundary walls, this wall on the street won't be disturbed with the exception of, for sightlines on the street. So if you feel the need to have a stone wall preservation agreement for what I just mentioned,
Mhm.
I don't think you should have any issue with it.
Oh, no, I
For the
believe.
bou-
leave
for the boundary walls at
Oh, yeah,
least?
They should
Okay.
stay.
Okay, because
My
I,
dad always said stone walls are good, they don't rust, they don't rot, they're always there.
And if somebody likes stone walls that are on their property, they can keep them, they can,
The existing interior ones?
yeah, they can fix them up if they want, like we did.
Clear 'em
Yeah,
out,
I did
everything.
the same thing.
Yeah.
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 but at least I think that preservation of that that wall
Got
and
it.
then along the roadway.
As
Oh, yeah.
a surveyor, you got it, you can't mess with the boundary.
Yeah,
walls.
we never had
Yeah,
intentions.
but I
of
think the
touching it.
preservation just puts it on
All
that.
right, so we'll do that for the boundary walls.
Okay. And then let me see, then this is where Peter started talking earlier about, and this is really something that's, I hate this subject, but it's about solar. And I'm being honest with you, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but the statutes talk about how you orientate houses to take advantage of passive solar and what you're doing. And subdivisions all need to require and look at the house orientation, how they're sitting between the street and the lot, the natural and man-made topographical features and protection of solar access within the development. Can you just describe how you considered solar in your proposal? And did you?
Well, in all cases, I tried to get garages on the north end of the homes. I tried to, been to it in all cases.
Okay,
Typically you don't heat the garage. And that would give most of my home, when I work the property, talk about like, most of my home will get the southern exposure, especially the lots along the street. We get the ones out back, there's some woods, trees, and you're not gonna be able to take advantage of solar that much back there. But I've also used my north arrows to show the proper way to do solar orientation.
Mhm.
And I don't like that right either, because we're doing subdivision. John Smith is gonna buy the lot, and then who's
I
gonna
know.
look after solar orientation at that point?
so I guess what I would say is my recommendation, because I agree with you on this, I do, is I think that maybe something should be on the plan that says, a plot plan should be looking at the orientation of houses to take advantage of solar or something like that, some language about solar.
That's if the homeowner wants solar, right?
It's,
No,
they
we're
have to,
talking about solar panels.
Okay.
We're talking about situating your house.
Oh, this-
So that natural heat.
take advantage of the
Okay. Oh, I
natural
see.
light. So maybe,
How to
you know,
angle it.
so
That's
it
fine.
really, it's more for that later, okay.
That's fine.
And then you're gonna correct there was some showing in the field, some tree lines that are no longer there, so.
Yeah, big part.
And then my last thing is, these are my conditions, which would be to address, and let me kind of fix those now. So we first have to talk about, do you want to have a conservation easement on any of those lots to protect the wetlands? It's up to you.
Well, the wetlands come under what the wetland regulations,
that's what I was
and
gonna say,
unless
they're
we're going,
regulated.
right, and
Yeah.
unless we're going to have a 25-foot set back from that.
Yes,
And to be honest, I didn't walk the site, so I don't know, and you had indicated that, you know, one of the wetland areas might be able to be used for a pond, and
Mhm.
I would hate to see someone who wanted to do that, not be able to do that,
Okay.
so I don't necessarily think.
Yeah, I agree with Kathy. I
Okay.
don't see that we need to enforce a conservation,
okay.
especially since they are
Okay.
wetlands and any
Okay.
activity is controlled by inland wetlands.
And to be honest with you, I'm in a subdivision that has a conservation easement.
It's a pain in the
No, everybody's, everybody who has the conservation easement in their property, and it has the signs of going around, and they
Yeah.
cleared it out, they cleared all the underbrush, and it's like, okay, they're not really effective.
Well,
Okay.
the second issue you have there is policing.
Right, that's right,
Yes.
exactly, so it's not effective.
It-
And
I mean,
They're
it's
out
not
of-
effective. It's the only tool we have, if we,
Right.
to keep people out of wetlands and doing things like, oh, I'm picking all my leaves and brush and sticking in the wetlands is like, kind of stay out of there.
yeah,
Even though I just want to clarify, we're talking about the wetlands, where the Wetlands Commission doesn't have the jurisdiction to put conservation easements on. The conservation
No,
easements are
but
done by the
they
planning.
would-
But anybody who wants to do activities in the wetlands
Yes.
has to go to.
Yep, so that would still kind of puts it down to like, if they're gonna be in the upland review and doing things, they should go to wetlands. So I'm comfortable with
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah.
So these are my items I just still outstanding. So number 3 was the underground utilities and how you feel about that.
Me, it seems like it's a cost up front that you're putting on people who buying those back lots. Maybe they can't afford it.
Well, can I say something?
Of course, Mike.
I want to note that the last major subdivision that was done in that area is Andrea Lane. And Andrea Lane has all of its utilities underground. There are no poles there. And I think to the extent that we can control that is if you walk down that street, it is visually much more perfect than seeing all these 9, 10, 12 poles going up and down the street. And so if we could require it of Andrea Lane, then I think we should look at that as a reasonable thing to do for this new subdivision.
To me, Mike, it's a little different than Andrea Lane because Andrea Lane's a street with houses
A new-
along it.
That was a new street, right?
Yeah. And there's those 3 back lots that are what, 450, 500 feet long.
Longer.
That you
650, right?
wouldn't be,
One of them is.
that are a lot different than having public streets. You know, if, somebody buys one of those back lots and wants to put underground utilities in, I mean, that's great. But for us to require it, I'm not sure, I think that's a great idea. Because, I mean, maybe you can address the expense of that.
Well, conduit especially right now is very, very expensive. One piece of 3-inch conduit is $100. I'm very familiar with it because I've been involved with an awful lot of development in southeastern Connecticut. And just as another comment is, there's 9 poles along our existing road frontage. So it's putting poles in is pretty much keeping with what the neighborhood has there. I agree, if somebody comes in and has a deep pocket, put 600 feet of conduit in, that costs pretty close to $6,000 just for the conduit. Good for them. But I hate to handicap a potential buyer, they have to do that. On top of all their other expenses.
That was kind of my thought on it. But that's just my thought. And I know Mike's got it.
All right, I just wanted to raise the issue.
No,
Kathy, what do you think?
I'm kind of torn on this because I would love to see the underground utilities. But there are not underground utilities on Scotland Road, right?
No, there's poles.
There's poles along
Poles,
the road,
right?
yeah.
But
So,
from some of the houses to the poles to the houses, I didn't see a lot of lines that went from the poles to the houses, but they're close to the road.
road, right?
But some,
And I mean, to be honest, I think if they have underground utilities, it would increase the value of the properties in this area, within the
Yes.
subdivision. So I think that's like a kind of a wash there. I'm an underground utility person. I would like
Well,
to
I
see
think
that,
it's,
but
I think it's nice, but to me, to force it and force that extra cost on somebody who's gonna buy one of those back lots, I think, yeah, maybe you're gonna find the people with the big pockets to buy it, but I don't know. Might be.
We're looking for them.
What's that?
We're looking for those.
Yeah.
You're looking for them.
I mean, the concern from aesthetic standpoint for me is the field lots in the front. There's a couple of one of the driveways that kind of goes at an angle and it literally crosses a field when you're out there. So the driveway's already
Yeah,
gonna
that would
split
not
between
be
2
good.
houses. So you've got 2 houses, then you got telephone poles going right by your house to go into someone's driveway. Light poles. So it just, that's what I don't like. It's that splitting up the subdivision lot by having, a field and all of a sudden having poles going
yeah,
through.
no, that would not be good.
It's the one I'm talking about is, Nope, Dan, let's go to the front page again. Could you just go to the major front page?
I don't want to be a wise guy here.
That one hold on one second, the two lower ones, see how the angle comes in?
You know me, I kiss stuff.
Those are two, right, yeah,
Yes.
that right there, that's field area,
Three.
yes. And so it's, it's just gonna look funky. If you lived on either side of those, you're gonna be looking at them.
Yeah, I agree.
But go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to be a wise guy here, but we have prepared plans that conform to the regulations.
Yes.
The regulations don't require underground utilities. And my experience with doing this work for a number of years is the commission can't require something that's not in the regulations. So if underground utilities were proposed, they'd have to be offered by the owner of the property. I don't think you require that. You don't want to count.
She's thinking about the homework you just gave her.
No, I'm
No,
not.
we're a very similar thought processes.
I'm not just.
But it's I mean, really,
Well, why don't we keep moving on
Yeah.
and get through the rest of it?
And you can
and,
talk about the
when
stuff.
We get
So-
to the point where
Make a motion, that'll be one of the things you gotta
we can
decide.
have discussion at that point.
Okay, so that was number 3. The last one's number 4. We already talked about the stone wall, so we'll leave that, and that's at the boundaries. Just so I can update that. And then number 6 was the tree limits. We're gonna correct those. So let's go back to, these are the conditions that I had come up, that the final set incorporate comments, 3, 4 around the boundaries, and 6. You're gonna discuss 3 again. Letter of approval we placed on the plan, erosion and sediment control bonds will be for each lot, so we won't be doing anything up front. Unless obviously you decide to do all the utilities beforehand or something, and then I'll need a bond for that. The Mylar requirements, the legal docs have to go to the city attorney, and those include the that right-of-way strip. The $700 to the city of open space. And then the certification that the boundary markers are in, and then the Mylars have to be filed within 90 days. So those are my conditions.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Along with the written certification, I think the best way to do this is for us to do the monumentation before the Mylars are printed. So the Mylars will show what's been said at all angle points and corners.
Okay, that's fine. So because you could do that, it just says have been completed in accordance with the subject. It doesn't say you
Yeah.
can't do it at that time. So
Well,
you-
I just think that,
you want the plan to be updated to say that they've been set, the pins are set.
yeah, because if this goes forward, all too often somebody will come in and say, I've got a subdivision lot that, we're in corners. But if
Yeah.
their label on the plan gets recorded, everybody knows forever.
Okay, so I can just kind of update that, or submit it to indicate the. So why don't we just do the subdivision plan, show, set markers, how's that? Okay. So I'll do that. So, those are the only things left that we need to discuss. Everything else that's kind of it. So those are my conditions, and again, that first one would be get rid of the item 1, because we're not gonna do that. So if you want to discuss 3, and it's number 4 and 6 have already been agreed upon.
so I have a question about 3.
What?
Can we go back?
Oh, and the sidewalk waiver, don't forget, you have to do that.
What's, I'm lost on the numbers. Sorry.
So the first, go back to,
Show the numbers.
hold down here, that first period, the first bullet point that I have.
One is the
One.
open space.
Yeah, we got rid of that. Number 3, you still
Wait,
need
what do you
to,
mean, got rid of the
What- you agreed that you're not gonna call for, have conservation easements. Number 1, you decided no conservation easements.
Right.
So now we're gonna
We can-
including that.
But we can
But
get an
that's-
open space fee.
Yeah, we're getting that.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
that's in the motion.
Yeah,
Okay, so so number 3, you still need to discuss, which was underground utilities. Number 4, the applicant has agreed to that they're gonna do the preservation of the walls along the boundaries. And number 6 is the 6 was the clearing limits are gonna be adjusted on the plans. And actually I'm gonna add number 5 too. Number 5, you're gonna put a note relative to solar on plot plans.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll talk about what that should reach.
So could I just suggest a compromise on the underground?
Sure.
You know, if we can put a comment on the plans about, you know, orientation for solar. Can we just add to that? That underground utilities would be encouraged but not required.
The applicant is shaking his head, yes, but I just want to clarify, the solar thing is required by statute. It's not a
Yeah.
recommendation, but this, if you want to make a recommendation on the plot plans and make that as part of the plot plans, you could.
Yeah, so if Mr. Gardner has no objection to just putting that language on the plan, we don't have to get into legal battles about it. And since it only really affects these one or two lots, I don't think it would be an issue really.
To me, Mike, to do something like
I'm
that.
good with that.
Deanna, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So where is that open field is for lot 1 and 3, is that right?
So if you-
Which
Yeah,
one?
1 and 3 right here on the first page. It's concerned the poles would sort of
So you-
aesthetically
Yeah,
pleasing.
yeah. No, I know.
Yeah.
If it's open, it's an open field.
Yep, and I actually printed hold on, I
A
thought,
picture?
yeah, I did today, hold on.
It goes kitty corner.
There it is.
The longest way.
Oh, yeah.
So
There it is.
where-
You know the
These
area,
are
don't you, Kathy?
Kathy.
Yeah.
And I'll hold it up
It's
to
a
the
big
public.
open field.
Yeah. So could we, on the lots that have open fields, could we require, I would like to require underground utilities for those lots.
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, I'm not in favor of that. I mean, I think we'd have to.
I think as Kathy does, that underground utilities will increase the value of the property in the long run. But you know, maybe that should be the aesthetic choice of the people who buy the lot.
Well, it's the issue is the lots on either side of it. If that the back goes in first and puts the poles up, the lots on either side get somewhat devalued because the
Yeah.
poles are already there. And
Can't
they'll be
fly
like-
their kite.
But
But I know what you mean.
you know what I'm trying to say, because it splits it like, almost like a road between them,
Yeah,
and then.
I would say to recommend it to people. We're asking actually, you know, pretty good money for these lots.
Mhm.
Yeah, so,
And
so if you're getting good
I
money,
think-
then they can put underground
I
utilities.
think, well, to recommend it.
Yeah.
And I think this better class of people, that they would just do it. Because I know a neighbor that did it at his house. He went halfway to the house on the ground, the transformer, and then the rest of the way. And-
Well, that's the thing, is if they could underground at least a portion through the fields, you
That's
know,
what I-
that first portion, and then again, go to the pole if they need to.
So
You know,
I don't think we should be requiring it though.
Well, just,
I don't know.
And I don't think we have the authority.
Exactly.
I agree with Peter. I don't think we have the authority to
I
require.
hate to put too many burdens on people. I mean, it's supposed to be a free country, but we have to obey laws.
right, but
So-
you also want to protect the value of people who are
Yes.
buying the property. So that is one of the ways you can protect that value. I mean, I personally would not want to see that when I spend probably, you know, a lot of money for a lot. Why would I want poles going past my property? So just in that one area, it's gonna protect the value of that person's property. It's gonna protect the aesthetic value. In the areas where there are trees, you know, I'm not that concerned, just at least in where there is,
But I don't think that's our job to protect aesthetic values.
but it,
That's why
And I don't
thought
think
the
we have the authority
recommendation-
to.
A recommendation would be nice, you know, at least let the people think about it.
yeah,
And I imagine decent people, they probably would do it.
yeah, so. that's-
But why require them to do it? It's like putting a gun to their head and say, well, you gotta do this and buy this land. Then it ain't a free country anymore.
I know, except, you know, I wouldn't want, so I buy the
Mhm.
lot. And then
You build your house, and then the
Yeah.
next person is the interior lot, and then they put poles all the way
Poles all
back.
the way
You spent
back.
$1 million on your house, and
Back.
now you're gonna be
There's
looking at
easy
that.
solution.
yeah, just do it in the,
Just change your regulations to put it in there.
Well, you know what? I think we have some jurisdiction over that. Deanna even said that. I do think.
I
we
can
do.
tell you, it basically says approved, so like, we have to approve.
Approved.
What in NPU said it's up to the commission, they have said they can do underground or all, so they don't care, so it's, you know, that's where I'm saying, it's. I think there's some flexibility in how you read that. What needs to be shown on the plan is all approved water, gas, and power lines and service connections. So I think that, you know, if the commission decides what's approved, because MPU says it doesn't matter, they look either way.
I think that's a pretty broad reading of our authority, you know, in any event.
Well, we've required it
Let's-
before, and that's all I'm gonna
In
say.
any event, let's move on
Yeah.
and have somebody make a motion regarding this.
So, Well, first, the
subdivision.
waiver, it has to happen first. Of that's for the sidewalks.
So let's move on. So can somebody make a motion to waive the sidewalks?
I will make that motion to waive the sidewalk requirements.
Okay, Mike's made the motion to waive sidewalk requirements. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ella seconded. Any discussion regarding that motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, so the sidewalk requirement has
Is that
been
unanimous?
waived. Yes. And then, if somebody can make a motion regarding the substance of the subdivision plan.
Okay, I will make that motion. To approve the subdivision plan with, the condition that they pay the open space fee, that, underground utilities be provided in the area of the, farm field. The preservation of the stone walls on the limits, property limits should be, we should have a preservation easement on the stone walls. And
Isn't that a law anyway, boundary around, you have to leave? You said something about an easement on the walls.
It's a preservation easement to make sure that if their historical significance, if someone doesn't
Because
try to say,
can't
oh, I'm
touch
gonna
them
put
anyway.
pins and markers in instead.
no, yeah, they can.
They could
Really?
reset them with
Yeah.
something else, but
Yeah.
we want to preserve. Okay, so go ahead,
So,
Kathy.
Okay, and the solar note and adjust clearing limits or the tree line as Deanna indicated. And I think that was it, Deanna, is that right?
And just the other standard.
The other
conditions,
standards
yeah.
as Deanna has outlined.
Okay, so Kathy's made the motion as she has stated it. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So there's a second, so discussion. My discussion is I'm not in favor of it with the underground utility requirements. If there's no other discussion, then we'll vote on it as it's set forth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so Frank, being opposed that, Ella, so.
So it's carried 3-2. So it's,
The underground utilities, will they have to go
Yeah, I think-
all,
No, just through the farm.
The
field.
portions that are through the farm fields need to go
I
in.
specify which farm field you're talking
yeah,
about.
I think we should
And-
probably
and
clarify that.
Deanna's gonna go out there and she's gonna establish that.
Okay, it's been.
Is that all right?
Yeah, unless you want to just.
Tech Drive,
I think we need to
I
settle
thought
that
it was
tonight.
for lot 2. Lot 2 is the one that has the driveway going diagonal through the field.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
this one here
Yep,
breaks up this deal.
So there's no ambiguity there.
so, yeah, and then let's look at the densest. How do you get to, because this one's over here, what's the other interior lot line? And also, what about the lot between, on lot 4, because you go between 3 and 5 there. Isn't
I
that
thought
farm
the
field?
discussion was centering on the access to lot 2.
Well.
Where's
that?
I
Yeah.
gave you that drawing right there.
Okay, so
Yes.
Here's the other one between 3 and 5, and these tree limits aren't really shown right, so this is really all field in front.
So. this one right here.
Yeah.
That one,
That's stone wall,
Yep.
which you see right there,
yeah, that's a stone wall, right? So this lot is between
1 and 3.
lot two. And then this one is
So it's lot,
right here,
Yeah,
so lot 4.
yeah. And it, you
So
know
it's
what?
really
A lot
for
of
lot
woods in that one.
Yeah, well, just in the area of the
farm field.
farm field, that's all. Just the
So-
area of the farm field.
Well, I think that we should
It's
really
already passed.
specify where you want
Okay.
these underground utilities on the record.
Okay.
Underground utilities in the farm fields, that access lots 4 and lots 2, is that the one
Okay,
you're saying?
I think you need to reference the driveways you're talking
Yep.
about.
The-
So it will be for this driveway?
Let me give it a shot again. From what I'm hearing, we're talking about the first, from the edge of the road, about 230 feet in on the driveway serving lot 4. That brings us nearly to where our wall was.
Well, so is the wall right here,
Yes,
Peter? Okay, so this is the wall,
yes.
right there.
And then
Yeah.
the driveway serving lot 2,
Two,
pretty near 400 feet, which brings us right
yep,
there.
yep,
So 200 feet of the, 230 feet of the driveway serving lot 4, 400 feet of the driveway serving lot 2.
now in lot 7, that has a line of trees,
Well, there's not almost a laneway there now.
yeah.
Yeah,
This
that's
existing
the last
driveway.
driveway into,
Yeah.
that's almost already, like, you can almost drive back there now.
Oh,
So-
yeah, I did
So let's
today.
clarify, so the underground utilities for lot 4 for the first 230 feet, and the underground utilities for lot 2, right, for the first 400 feet.
Yes.
All right,
I think we should amend the motion then to specify that on the record.
Okay, I'll amend the motion to state that. the
I'll
dis-
second the amendment.
Okay.
Within the,
what I just said.
right, but I
Okay,
mean, that's going to, depending upon the actual measurement, Peter, that could change a little bit.
Well,
It's just within the farm field, but it's
yeah,
about,
but.
just put about,
This is pretty well defined.
okay,
The field is
Okay.
within the walls, and then
all right,
again, there's a wall here.
okay,
So we're
all right, that's good.
make it plus or minus,
Yeah,
230 plus
yeah,
or minus 400
fine.
plus or minus.
All right,
so
that was
Let's have
amended to
the motion.
clarification. It was a clarification.
clarification amendment. I
Okay.
mean, I want it clear on the record.
Kathy, Mike seconded it.
And, well, let's get it clear on the record so that it's underground utilities to be required on the driveway for lot 4, 230 feet more or less. And for the driveway for lot 2, 400 feet more or less.
Yep.
So is that your motion, Ken?
Yes, that's fine.
And seven's okay.
And Mike, you second that
Yes,
motion?
yes,
I do.
I know.
Okay,
Okay.
so this is a amendment
Okay, hold on.
to the main motion that we've just stated, and any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so that's,
Okay, so the amendment made
that's
it.
the amendment to the motion. It's
Oh, yeah.
approved with that amendment of
Yep.
specification regarding the underground utilities.
Thank you
All
very much for your time, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Always in the good.
Pardon me?
The negotiation, I told you.
That's how things get done.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
What was the
so
name of the gentleman at home? I don't know.
Michael Lehan?
Oh, the attorney,
Yes. that's
Oh,
Michael
yes.
Lehan.
my neighbor.
Oh,
He is my neighbor.
All right.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
All
And
right.
I have actually represented
thanks for your
some of
time.
the generations of his family.
Stuff.
I couldn't hear you, Michael.
I said, I've actually represented some generations of your Lilliburge family.
Yeah, I was in your office a couple of years ago. You were telling me stories.
Yeah.
Very
All right, so then-
entertaining.
Mike, you're disqualified now.
All right,
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so those matters were dealt with. I see no extension request.
yes, there is.
Yes.
Bond reduction release is 90 Sachem Street.
There's no number 7 extension request. I see none.
There's number 7.
On the
On
agenda.
your,
Oh, Dan had printed these out, Devin. Dan, you did
So
this.
I see
7
no
extension.
extension requests on the agenda.
Oh, but I do have one.
I'm throwing you under the bus.
Wait a
This
minute.
all happened after this
Oh.
took place.
When you went to the bus, you gave me this afternoon. Okay.
I
All right,
see
we
a
do have
bond
an, hold on,
reduction.
we have an extension request. That's not none, that's gonna be modified. So we
Then
do have one
to
came in
amend the
today.
agenda.
So can we amend the agenda that we have an extension request?
And what's that for?
This is for the subdivision 435, which was 217 Otrabando Avenue. When there was a 2-lot subdivision, when they split the property for where the farm supply is and where the storage
yeah.
facility is. The 90 days is gonna be up this Monday. And they're very close to giving me everything. It says, good afternoon, Deanna, on behalf of Muller Real Estate. Please consider this email a formal request to the commission on the city plan for a 90-day extension to file the Mylars and easement related to the subdivision 435, re-subdivision of 217 Otrabando. The Mylars and file copies have been printed, certified, and will be delivered to your office for signature by the chairman by the end of this week. However, the granting of this extension will ensure sufficient time to file without expiration. So we're
I'll make
asking.
make a motion to amend the agenda first. We have to do that, right?
I don't think so. I think
Okay,
you
I'll make a motion to,
approve the extension request.
mhm.
So the motion to approve the extension request. Do we have a
I'll second.
Thank you, Ellen.
Second by Ella. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the
Unanimous.
extension request for Otrabendo Avenue subdivision 235 for 90 days for filing the Mylar is granted.
All right,
Next, number 8 on the agenda, bond reduction relief request.
Okay.
90 Sachem Street, NFA.
so this one is, this one's a little odd because they didn't, this is NFA, and they did not do the project on 90 Sachem Street that they were gonna do. I think it was some athletic fields and things that they were doing there. The gymnasium and stuff. They didn't end up doing it. But, so they decided they would like their bond back. They've expired, but they could ask for an extension, but they decided they want the bond back. And at that time, it was more than erosion and sediment control. We took the whole amount. So it was $38,440 statement account. But when Rich went out there with the city engineer, and I think with Dan might have been there too, he noticed that they did some of the work on the site plan as far as the layout of the parking lot, and they eliminated the handicap parking space that needs to be there. So Rich was not crazy about releasing this yet, but it seems ridiculous to hold the bond for that. So I'd like a condition that this release after they restripe the handicap space. Are you comfortable with that? Okay, so a motion to do that.
So moved.
Make a motion.
Mike made the motion.
I'll second.
I say that, yeah.
Okay. I'm just telling you, he made it. Mike released, okay, so on, release after restriking the handicap space. Go ahead.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Who was the
Yeah,
second?
I did. Mhm.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that bond reduction with the condition regarding the handicap striping is approved.
Thank you.
Do we have any other business?
Yes, so last night at the council meeting, they had on their agenda a referral to the commission on the city plan. And if we didn't address it tonight, we'd have to have a special meeting because it's gonna be about in front of them again for their June 19th meeting, and we're not meeting again until June 20th. And what it is, Dan, can you call that up? Is an ordinance appropriating $6 million for the City of Norwich Infrastructure Improvements Program 2023 and authorizing the issuance of $6 million bond of the city to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purpose. And it's really for the planning, acquisition, and construction of the City of Norwich Infrastructure Improvement Program, it consists of the improvements or new construction of roads, bridges, bridge structures, parking structures, sidewalks, piers, and wharves, and appurtenant areas throughout the city of Norwich. It's my understanding that this comes up every 5 years.
That's the road.
It's the road bond that they do, and it's usually $5 million. But they're finding that the $5 million that they usually do is not sufficient, so they need to go for 6 million, and they're hoping with the 6 million they can do at least what they were able to get done for the 5 million before. So this
So
is.
This is just the general road.
This is the road bond that they do, paving, yep. So in your plan of conservation and development, obviously, we have a chapter addressing transportation and mobility needs, and it's consistent with a lot of the guidance here. in the community to continue to maintain roads and bridges in order to extend their useful life and minimize the need for expensive reconstruction. So,
All right, so this is the referral we received, I guess, today.
yes.
So, does somebody want to make a motion? This is, again, just a referral to the city council. We're not passing anything. This is just a referral on the ordinance.
So you
I-
don't make a favorable or unfavorable recommendation.
I have
Right.
a quick question.
Sure.
What is the limit for a referendum?
We don't know. What is
You
that?
know, Frank?
So it used to be $800,000.
It used to be, but I know that
I don't know
it's
what
not
it is.
anymore. So would we have to go, will this be on our, this would probably be on our,
Yeah, isn't this so that they can add it to
I think so. I didn't.
November?
yeah, I think so
Yes.
too, yeah.
'Cause
You
it-
guys
I
are much
believe it
more on
still
top
is
of that than me.
800,000.
It
Yes.
is 800,000?
Yeah, I think it is.
still is.
Still?
Yeah, yeah, I think it is too.
I
But
think that's for actual spending. This is an appropriation on a bond. Different.
I mean, I can try to get a hold of someone to ask them the
No,
question now.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Just wondering, okay.
So this is really a bonding issue. as
Yes,
opposed
it
to
is.
Anything else.
And it will allow us to repair our roads, improve our drainage, and I think that's what we should encourage.
Mhm.
So, and it's done every 5 years, you said.
I think it's every 5 or something, yeah.
Regardless, we can.
Here it is, it's approved at referendum.
Okay, there you go.
But what it really is a time crunch. They need to have it.
Yeah,
refer
I'm
to that.
just referring it back
Thank you.
with
Yeah.
a positive or negative referral.
They need to vote on it in June
Yeah.
to get it on for November.
All right, so
Really the
I
last-
would move that since the program would be consistent with our plan of development, that we should approve this request.
All right, so we have a motion from Mike Lehan to send a favorable referral to the city council for the proposed ordinance for the 6 million bond. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ella. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to, from serving on city council before, this is pretty standard. It does come up every few years that the bonds have to be renewed. It's part of this, the city infrastructure. It does have to go for referendum vote. So we're not actually, approving it. City council does that. And so, yeah, it's pretty standard.
Yeah, it just changes the way the vote is. If we voted negatively, then they would have to pass it by a supermajority.
Super majority, yep.
Okay, so we've had the motion and the second. Any other discussion? Thanks for the input, Ella. All in favor? Aye,
I
no opposition, so that's sent with a favorable recommendation to the city council. And then we have any other business besides that?
POCD update. Dan started to,
Before we do that, I'd like to ask, under other business, if we could do 2 things. One, I have a question about an accessory apartment.
okay,
So accessory apartments require a special exception, so for a 650 square foot apartment, they have to get a special exception. So could we look to change that? So that maybe it would just be a zoning permit, and even if it comes before the commission, to make people go through something like that.
well, I will tell you that people, for example, I won't get into this one particular site, but people have questions about, they get upset when there's like an accessory apartment next door to them. They want to come up, they come in, and people have come in specifically about this one and was concerned about it. So I'm not saying that it's the right or wrong
But if
thing,
we-
but so what I explained to this one person was that if this addition did not have a kitchen, you would have no say. It's the
Right.
fact that because they could make 2 more bedrooms as long as about the health code. It could be, they could have another living room, they could have, whatever.
Right.
It's the kitchen that becomes that in that living space. And that's what kicks it in. And they look surprised because they feel that they should have a right anytime that someone puts an addition on their house when it's, you know, but they
So-
don't. But you're right. And when maybe it becomes a recommendation of the plan that we revisit that is something, revisit in-law, you know, accessory apartments and
Yeah.
changing the permission of them or something
Yeah,
generally.
Just to make them not have to go through so much, I mean, it just seems.
Yeah,
Well, we went
especially
through a lot.
in view of the aging population.
Population,
The way
right,
I look at it, it's not for eternity. It can turn into a paying, almost duplex kind of situation. So that's. It's nice, and I know why they're doing it, and it's great, and a lot of people do it, but it turns into a money-making thing as long as it's still your primary residence.
Mhm.
So it's when that turns over, when, you know, your mother passes or something, you know. Your cousin moves in with his wife and there's 4 cars on the driveway and more going on. That changes for
But if
me,
you-
and that was written in there. And granted, it was affordable housing, which is nice. But that changes, I looked at it more long-term than I did just short-term.
but if you have like criteria that it can't be bigger than a certain square footage of the house, so it's a small unit, and I just don't.
And then a third of the house.
It
or
is,
area
yeah.
or-
I mean, people, like I said, people question Kathy even when they're small. They just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like they feel like a 2 families going in next door to them, whether it's not, or they feel that way. And they say, like you said, when that person's no longer renting, a family member, it can be rented to the public and there's no control of it except for that, the affordability, which I'll be honest with you, how are we gonna enforce that anyway?
No,
The deed
I
restriction.
don't, that,
But it does help with the deed restriction to say that we have another affordable unit in the city, that kind of thing, and they're agreeing to it. But I don't disagree with you, but I can
Yeah.
tell you, if we don't make it a public hearing, we will still get people probably upset when they find out there's an accessory apartment next door to them.
we have them all the time in Preston, all the time. And, I mean, I rarely get anyone opposing it, but we don't do public hearings. We don't require that they notify the abutters, but no one's ever come in complaining about
But
it.
it's because they probably may not have paid attention or known that it was happening. If they were notified, then they get all like, whoa,
Yeah,
what's
but I
going
mean,
on? I don't know. It's a
you
half
have to
dozen
look
one, a
at-
half dozen the other.
I mean, I just think that that,
It's not our call at this
Right.
point at any.
But I
the
think-
regulations are.
We could do
I
it in
think-
certain zones.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we look at the
just
certain.
look at it, because to make people go through that, when,
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
but maybe that could be something that we can work into the
Um,
plan.
I agree completely with Kathy on this.
Oh, my,
And I don't think it ought to be. Huh?
really?
Yeah, I do. I honestly
Thank you,
do.
Mike.
You're absolutely right. And I don't think it ought to be limited to zoning. You know, to whether you have a R80 zone, they're excluded. If you have an R40 zone, they're included, so they all end up in the multifamily zones. You know, zoning has become really exclusionary. You know, look at the subdivision that we just approved. You know, she's not selling those lots for $40,000. And so where are that provided? People the right to do something with their properties because some people don't like it. And nobody dislikes it. Everybody thinks it's a great idea unless it's
Their neighbor.
happening to them.
Yeah.
So I think going through a process that Kathy suggests is much more reasonable. Because we can't continue to have everybody objecting to what is reasonable land use, just because they don't want that in the neighborhood, and we're just continuing the exclusionary role of zoning to prevent diversity, to prevent economic stabilities, you know, and we need to just be more aware of that as time goes by. The world has changed, and we got to change with it.
Yeah, but in any event, that's a question for the city council. at
Yeah,
some point.
but I think we can initiate something if, you know,
In the
you
plan,
guys
yeah.
all decide to
No,
do that.
I think
But So that I just, after going through that, okay, and then the other thing is, if we can please change the open space fee requirement.
Oh,
So we tried to.
yeah,
If
and
you remember.
we went around and around and we took with you
You-
guys.
No,
Oh my
I-
God.
I must not have been here because.
Yeah, remember we had multiple iterations of it
Oh my
and it was
gosh.
taking yours and it was taking others and it was changing it
Yeah,
and it just kind of died.
but we need to revisit that, and
I
you
know.
can just take it word for word from the statute if you didn't like
I know.
what we put together, but ours works really
No,
well.
and that's what I did a
We-
majority of yours. We
we
just
have-
never got past it to make that, to bring it to,
It's
Exactly.
laughable that
I know.
it's $700.
I
And
know.
Peter Gardner was sitting there laughing at that because he knows what he has to pay when he comes to Preston.
Yeah.
they
It's
believe
a,
me.
it's a pittance.
It is a pit and it's embarrassing because they're like, when we had the meeting with about open space, he was like, do I have to provide open space? I said, well, we have an open space in lieu of, and he's like, well, how much of it? We're not providing open space. And said, well, we can still ask for conservation easement, even though we don't get the open space.
Yeah, I mean, so I think.
But I know we need to
Just-
revisit that
just
again.
make
It did,
10, that 10% of the assessed, of the appraised value,
Yeah.
and you make them get
appraisal
an
done.
appraisal done, and that's required, that's all in the statute. And they pay a portion of it as each lot is sold. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. We'll
That's
we'll
again
go
something that's
back.
gonna go to the city council.
Well, we're gonna hopefully after the plan is done, then we need to look at the zoning regulations, but we also want money for the subdivision, right? They're like so old, the subdivision regulations. They're like typed. It's not even like, we don't even have this. It's like was done on like a data processor.
The 80s.
Yeah, there's, so we, no one's taken the time to even retype them because it's just such a project to do it, so.
And
Yeah, we've done that, but you know how it happens when you
I
get
know.
Adobe, it like totally fries it out.
But I think if
Anyways.
we could start working on, especially the open space thing,
I
that would
know.
be really, that wouldn't take a whole lot.
We tried, we did. Every once in a while it comes back up. We're like, the commission never went any further with this. Okay,
Maybe
Right,
we can
let's-
try that again.
Let's go to the update.
Dan.
POC update. We had a meeting last Wednesday. It was quick but productive. I met with the consultant the day after. I have a couple changes to the current land use map. And then I'll send it out to everyone. And if you want a printed large scale copy, we can do
Yeah,
that.
I'd like to get.
Yeah,
big copy.
I know I told you I'd have it for you tonight, but I haven't had time to
Yeah.
make changes.
I'm not worried, but
And
I
then,
just think it'd be a lot easier to deal with.
The clock is
Yeah.
ticking very fast now.
yeah, so I've just been writing. So it's,
I'm trying to keep Dan, like, me out of Dan's hair, but I can't help it. Sometimes I have to bother him and it's just, it's
So,
crazy. We're
yeah.
so in like stuff like this and, it's just I'm trying to take all the plan review away from Dan so that I can do that on top of, everything else. And I don't know if you know that, Sydney left in community development, the director of community development. So I'm going to be, interim director of community development as well. So I'm trying to get that managed and figure out what that means, like for the community development block grant, all that kind of stuff. So it's not the best time for this to happen because we're working on the plan and we're very busy. But trying to, keep everything rolling in the city,
Are you submitting any grants?
Are we what submitting?
Submitting any grants?
Yeah,
to
we
the
submitted several grant applications.
community?
We're waiting
investment
for it.
plan?
We didn't do the connectivity one just recently. We didn't do the community one recently. We did the CIF, the last round. We're also putting a brownfields grant, we prepared the brownfields grant for, the Cape Hart building. To be able to do that, ask for 4 million, which is the cap on that for the first round. It's more than that to do it. It's about, to make it into a park is what we want to do is take it all down and take the buildings and it'll be about $13 million project, but about 4 million is the cap right now. We submitted in for congressional appropriated funds, funding from the federal government, 3 projects and all of them are moving forward, which is great. So, in the city, so we're kind of staying on top. We did the DEP grant for the trails to rehab the Heritage Trail because it's
Oh,
time.
thank you. Yeah,
30
that's a
years,
mess.
and
Yeah.
so we want to extend it, but you
Did
can't
get
really,
that?
what?
Did
we
you
haven't
get
heard yet.
We haven't heard
The
trails grants.
recreational trail grant?
Yeah, did
You
they
didn't get it. You didn't.
We
hear.
would have heard.
Yeah.
No,
Because we
seriously?
got it.
When did you hear?
The announcement just came out today, but I had heard,
The Trails Grant announcement came out
Yeah.
today?
yeah.
We didn't even get an email for that. That said that any, like an email, like even usually I
Yeah,
get
from
something.
Kim Bradley. Kim Bradley,
Sounds
Yeah.
familiar, yeah.
yeah, that's the lady, yeah.
I'll have to
But-
look.
But I think they didn't have a lot of money, so.
I get so annoyed when Norwich doesn't get it though, because we are just stressed community. We have so many things that,
Right.
you know, we should be up on the top.
But, when I talked to her, because I submitted a grant for like 400,000 or somewhere around there. We got 60,000 of that 400.
Ah,
I
Oh,
know,
alright.
but still, it's still
Yeah.
good. They didn't have a lot of money, but, she said in like October, November, they're going to have another round
Yes.
and they're going to, she thinks they're gonna have a lot more money, like
Yeah.
10 million instead of 5.
Yeah.
They got $29 million worth of grant
Awesome.
requests and 5 million.
well, we didn't get any, we didn't hear, I didn't even know the announcement came out, so I'll have to look
Yeah.
for the announcement.
Yeah. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
All right, well, that's disappointing.
Remember to do that.
So, because, you know, we spend a lot of time on, you know, on top of everything else we're doing, that like,
Yeah.
everybody wants us to help work on grants on top of everything, so it's a
Yeah.
lot, it's a lot.
Back to the POCD though, Dan, you're working on it. We've got meetings.
Next
Every other week.
Next week, yeah,
So next week is the on week and then every other week and through
Yeah.
August. And hearings coming up.
Yeah, and we have, 3 public meetings coming up.
Yeah.
The June 28th, I think it is the one that we're having at NCDC, 2 of them that same night, and then that week, what's it, 14th or
14th
something,
is the senior
is the
center.
senior center during the day.
Are you gonna send out notices for that to everybody?
Yeah, we will, so if you want to come, you know, if you want to come during the
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
we have to figure out how we're gonna do because we're gonna show them what we have so far, but we're still gonna give public, public input on that too. The one at Boundary 66 that we're doing on the 28th, we'll have pizza because we're gonna do it from 5 to 6, then 6 to 7. So, try to get people to come.
It'll be
before
the
they get
same
home.
thing, the second hour, so.
Yeah, just doing like
Either one.
2 of them, so.
Hmm.
It's a lot. We have in the time frame now, it's like the clock is ticking, so Dan's gotta put in hours and I gotta stay out of his hair. Try.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else? I think so.
We want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second,
second.
Ella second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
I want to apologize for the delay. But